After months of perceived negligence, jilted Helldivers 2 patriots are dropping 500 kg review bombs on the once celebrated online shooter. Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to see where disgruntled players are coming from.
If you want new stuff and you want it to be fun and new and you don't want your guns to get nerfed and you want bugs to get fixed, yeah, it makes all sense. But in typical gamer fashion, the people online are being pretty dramatic about it. But that's what gamers are for, right?
So that's how they do it. Helldivers 2 players are in open revolt following an unsatisfying update and a Reddit AMA that failed to turn sentiment around.
Yes, the game's recent reviews on Steam are rated mostly negative, with only 36% of user reviews in the last 30 days rating the game positive.
Yeah, that's real bad. We're even starting to see Krobby Cat-style YouTube takedown videos set to cheeky music, which is maybe the step right before a bunch of angry nerds start protesting your office in person. I would be surprised to see that.
Yeah, is this DEF CON 3? I guess DEF CON 2 is when you start getting the repeated Reddit posts bleeding into other subreddits trying to rile everyone up. Yeah. Yes, the gamers are mad as usual, right? It's another week on the internet. And as usual, again, we're left with the thundering question of why?
Well, there are lots of reasons, Lawrence, but let's talk about the Helldivers reasons. Reading through the comments, there are a lot of reasons the Helldivers related, but the flashpoint for this particular dust-up seems to be Exo Experts Warbond, which launched on April 28th.
Yeah, that's the first date when all these negative review bombs started spiking on Steam, and they've been spiking ever since. This particular Warbond contains 2 new exosuits, one XO51 and one XO55, and this is the first appearance of an unlockable vehicle in a paid Warbond.
Yeah, that's pretty scary. I understand that. Folks were understandably grumbly about this move because it means that future vehicles would likely be in Warbonds as well. And of course, you can grind for those super credits or whatever, but like, this kind of sucks.
So this seemingly uncorked a lot of built-up frustration with Helldivers 2 that spans most aspects of the game. So it's kind of like, it's like a good relationship fight. It may have been about the sock on the floor, but now it's about everything.
Naturally, different players are frustrated with different aspects, and even more naturally, each person seems to have a different, perfect, and easy solution that Helldivers developers unjustly ignore and just refuse to do outright.
Yeah, come on, it's that easy. Just add tons of content to the game, make it all fun, make all of my favorite guns viable again, and fix all the bugs. Just do all, yeah. I don't mean to minimize players being aggravated. I think some of this is justified, but, maybe not the histrionics. Anyway, we're going to try our best to summarize people's top-line frustrations with the game right now.
Yeah, Helldivers 2 players are frustrated that, on top of charging money to access the new exosuit variants, there really haven't been any meaningful freebies for the player base in a long time.
Yeah, you haven't taken me out to dinner in a while. Come on. It's basically that, yeah. We got no new stratagems, no new equipment or Warbonds, no new free stuff anyway. And this is interesting, all the older Warbonds never go on sale. That might help.
That is weird. Folks are also upset that for every buff or bug fix, there's an accompanying nerf to player equipment for the sake of, quote, balance. And I understand, it's funny, I understand both sides of this, for at least in terms of the balance perspective of Helldivers. That said, though, it's PvE. Like, just let us blow away a bunch of bugs,
Yeah, I remember we would go back and forth in this when the game launched a few years ago about how it's got to stay competitive and it's got to stay challenging, but also it's just AI. Let people kill everything. Yeah, the perception here is that Arrowhead goes out of their way to patch up any gameplay edge or equipment edge that players discover, while leaving existing bugs in the game for months or even years. So they're just out here killing our fun, and that's it.
Reddit user Odo writes, quote, "For some reason, it's more of a priority to make enemies less fun to engage with, remove creative solutions players find, abandon weapons, and leave them in a state of viability, but nothing more, and all the while wonder why players are so hateful," in a recent AMA with Arrowhead CEO Johan Palstad.
Yes, this is really fascinating here. Reddit user Secadonian even made a massive bug tracking document, which is a really impressive way to illustrate the severity of an issue. Also a hell of a use of one's free time, but it's a really impressive doc if you give it a scroll.
Man. There are a few other grumbles here. Weapon and vehicle customization is inconsequential, and Galactic War events have been short and uneventful. I remember initially with Helldivers, that was a really exciting part of this game, with the Galactic War events and like seeing the new things that they were adding. They've sort of fallen off there, and now they're throwing in paid exosuits to Warbonds, which Maybe they're moving on to Helldivers 3. I don't know. Whatever. But it is sort of dragging on.
Yeah. When they launched, the biggest thing was that they had like a live dedicated storyteller or game master. The idea being that there would be all these spontaneous events or that the game would dynamically react to how players behaved in the game. But the game doesn't really make any of those things clear back to the player. So you can do a lot of stuff and the Galactic War can turn out in a certain way. But you log in and you get your medals and it just feels like another day, you know?
This review from Steam user Libby seems to properly summarize the community's frustrations, writing, quote, "There is this constant monkey's paw approach to every change. Anytime something feels good, it immediately comes with a trade-off that makes the overall experience worse. Something gets stronger, but the enemies get stronger too. A weapon becomes viable, but something else gets gutted to compensate. It feels like you're afraid to let the game be fun without pulling it back. Instead of fixing long-standing issues, you keep pushing out Warbonds while core systems remain broken. And those same Warbonds from over 2 years ago are still full price with no meaningful adjustment. That's not support, that's stagnation."
I guess adding new content to the game isn't quite being stagnant, but maybe stagnant in the way that these players specifically want, and I get that. And I certainly understand about that. Yeah, the Galactic War stuff is pretty underwhelming. All this unrest resulted in a comprehensive post from the developers on Steam last Friday in an attempt to address all the frustrations.
Yeah, the post explains the team is currently focused on improving meta progression and the Galactic War features, specifically promising more meaningful rewards, major orders that evolve into multi-week campaigns, and branching outcomes that make player actions more consequential. All these updates should arrive this summer, so in a few months.
Yeah, the branching outcomes thing sounds really cool. I don't know why they didn't do that before, but yeah, that sounds awesome. They also acknowledge that some of the quote-unquote hidden balance changes that have occurred, those are all unintended consequences of balance changes to other far-reaching systems. I think a lot of people were really mad about the changes to fire and fire propagation, but it turns out the coyote gun, I guess, that was an unintended side effect of the way that they changed fire propagation and how it worked. So the player base felt like they'd been lied to and deceived, and the developers, I guess, acknowledged that they have to be a little more clear and far-reaching with their communication about changes and updates to the game.
Yeah, that makes sense. They're also quite explicit that they will be adding more vehicles to the game that can be unlocked with gameplay, so they won't all be in paid Warbonds going forward. This is maybe my biggest complaint with Helldivers right now, is that putting something that looks like kind of pay to win into these Warbonds.
Yes, I mean, the exosuit itself, you can get that just with, commendations? So you don't have to pay money just to get the vehicle. It's these vehicle variants. One has a flamethrower and a shield, I think. The other one's got, what is it? It actually looks pretty cool, but a heavy flak cannon.
They are cool.
And a ballistic shot. That sounds awesome. But yeah, it's behind a paid war bond. I think players are pretty right to be a little bit jumpy at anything that seems like a shift in monetization philosophy. Yeah, so if you're starving for new vehicles and suddenly new vehicles show up or new vehicle variants show up and they're behind a paid thing, then suddenly it starts to get really worrisome. Oh no, all my free treats are going away. Or the developers more likely are only going to focus their development efforts on the things that they're going to charge money for in the future. So there is some at least reassurance that they're going to toss some freebies out here and there and make the events a little more spontaneous and exciting. I don't know, Bruce, do you buy it? Do you feel like Helldivers is in a good place? I have some more like higher level questions about just games of service in general that I'm excited to talk about, but specifically with Helldivers, how are you feeling?
Man, Helldivers is funny because I haven't played Helldivers in quite a while. It's been maybe 6 months or so. And I love this video game. And so I've been really watching this from afar, sort of waiting for it to settle out before I jump back in. And what's funny about that is that about 3 months ago, they sort of had another dust up, not as big. And I was like, you know what? I'll wait. I'll wait to see if that settles out. So they keep having these dust ups. And when I was playing this game consistently, this did happen a lot. They would occasionally nerf a weapon that I was using all the time, and I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I'll go use another one, and I'd use another weapon, and then they would then buff the weapon back. I'm not crazy about. I do understand from the developer's perspective. I get it. They're trying to balance everything, whatever. But the whole thing is, to me, it's just PvE. This is PvE. Like, let people have fun. If something like, for my best example of this is there's a great bug that I encountered early on in Helldivers, which was, if you, there was a specific sequence of keys or mouse clicks that you could do, and you could bring in 4 of the same stratagem. So everyone could bring the same turret. You'd have like 12 of these turrets, and it was awesome. It was so fun to see all this shit pop off, and like, who cares if you won or lost? It was just a fun thing to see in the video game. They got rid of that. And I was like, ah, man, that's so much fun. Like, why'd they get rid of that? That doesn't even help you, really. It's just like, just for fun. And that's my best example of this, is that I just want to have fun. And like, there are tryhards out there, in the multiplayer matchmaking that are like trying to sweat through lobbies. But generally speaking, the community just wants to go out and have fun and like blow stuff up. And I'm more on that side. And it's the same with the, we'll talk about the games as a service and the pay to win stuff here in a second. But for Helldivers specifically, I just want them to err on the side of fun, not on the side of balance.
It makes sense. Players want to have fun, right? I think having played some games that go a little overboard, though, and catering to the fun factor, is that sometimes if you go a little too hard in that direction, it's like cotton candy. Like, players just get all the sugar and then they're done, and then they don't want to play it anymore. Or rather, they feel like they've experienced everything there is to experience because it all got served up on a plate right in front of them. And what I think Helldivers is trying to do, and this is exceptionally challenging, is maintain the intellectual stimulation of gameplay so that it's still challenging, it still forces you to make decisions, it's still an active game versus you log on, you do the one thing you do because it works all the time, and then you grind out all the resources that you want, you buy all your equipment because now that you've solved the game, you can just do it right away. So you get everything you want, there's nothing left to get, and then you stop playing the game. So I think the developers at Arrowhead are very intelligently trying to keep it in this middle zone where it's still in these bounds of being challenging and interesting and the rule sets still apply. But to your point, Bruce, I do think there is a lost opportunity here. I think, and it's work. I'm inventing work for the developers to do, and I remember Pilestead actually brought up a number of times in the AMA, hey, we're still like a 100 dev studio. We're not huge. We're not Epic Games. We can't roll out Fortnite-style updates all the time. And I'll have something else to say about that later. But I do think what they should have done is whenever they find, or whenever the player base discovers these bugs, they should, I understand them wanting to patch it out or relegate it, but maybe make it an event of like, oh, it's Patriots Day, where now everybody gets as many turrets as they want because enterprising Helldivers found this in the past or whatever, found a shipment of turrets that fell off of a space freighter, and now we have all the turrets we want for one day. So do something like that. Again, I'm making this up and I'm inventing work for the devs, but something like that would both acknowledge the player side of things, ostensibly like give people what they want, but make it a timed event so it's not the status quo. That'd be cool. It's funny for me, Bruce, you mentioned like keeping your distance from the game because of sort of the negativity surrounding it. For me, weirdly, I had a whole narrative with Helldivers around Cyberstan, the event that they did. It was so fast and so like inconsequential that by the time I had heard that it was happening and like got the game installed and was ready to play, it was over. So I guess I got to be more on the ball. Maybe that's the message, but that was disappointing for me because that's the thing I've been waiting for, is like a new environment, new enemies, some kind of progression, or I want to see more of this ridiculous universe, and that was an opportunity to do it. But by the time I got to the game, it was already gone. So that to see other people bring that up that had actually played the event, see other players bring that up as something that was underwhelming, I was like, yeah, it was for me too. I didn't even get to it. So I'm hoping that those things roll around again in a more meaningful way, and it sounds like that's what they're planning on.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There have been a couple events where I was like, oh, I can't wait to play it, and it was done in 2 days or whatever. I was like, what? Wait, I got to play one match. I was like, I didn't even have a chance. And then let's more generally talk about games as a service, because you wrote appropriately enough in the script, die a hero, live long enough to see yourself become the villain, because that is what happens with games as a service. That is always the way this works. I feel like we keep running into the same level of pay to win, which is you don't want to do pay to win in multiplayer. So everyone has agreed, let's not do pay to win microtransactions when you're playing against other people. Generally, that seems to be a rule that most developers hold to. I don't think there's any game really that does that. Helldivers is in a weird middle space, because in PvE, but we're co-op, then some people are willing to do the pay to win, and so then other people who you're playing with, you get to see the cool shit that they have, and you don't have the cash for it, and you're like, that sucks, like, because it does suck. And I know you can grind for super credits, I'm aware, but people don't want to do that. They don't want to do that over and over and over, and they're worried this Warbond is a slippery slope of like they're going to put the next vehicle only behind the paid Warbond, so the only people that actually get the next exosuit not a variant of the exosuit, will be the people that pay money or the people that grind for super credits. And I actually do think that this is a bad policy. I do think in a PvE co-op game like this, I would rather that they give this to everybody and then the, whatever, cosmetics for microtransactions in a PvE co-op. And I get that there's nothing at stake. You're playing against AI, but that's the way I feel about it. Hilariously, with Diablo Immortal, I don't know if you remember this. Everyone's really mad about the pay to win. But if it was just a solo play and you were paying to win a solo game, I don't care. Whatever. Pay $100,000 to beat Diablo Immortal by yourself. Who gives a shit? Like that doesn't bother me at all. It's just it's the concept of playing with other players that have the thing that you couldn't pay for, that you didn't have the money for, that might bother more people.
Yeah, and that's understandable. I'm of two minds on that. It doesn't feel good, and I think, the ideal situation is to only monetize skins. But this is a game that's been, in operation for 2 years now. If you've been playing it pretty consistently on $40 for 2 years, that's a pretty amazing value. So at some point, I think it's understandable, maybe not desirable. You don't have to be happy about it, but to me, at least, it's understandable that if you got 2 years out of playing a game, that at some point you might log on and see something that you have to buy, or that somebody else has that you don't. A lot of fighting games and stuff will do that. I mean, there's characters that they'll add that you don't get access to. It's not just skins. I'm not saying that justifies it. I'm just saying that, I think that a lot of games can operate with this kind of organization, and I think it can make sense. There are a couple of notable differences that I'm thinking of, because I was trying to think. I was racking my brain for live service games that have existed long enough and largely kept their player base happy. I'm thinking of Path of Exile and Warframe. Those are two that have managed to kind of maintain the separation of church and state. They have pretty clear boundaries about what's monetized and what isn't. And they seem to treat their player bases pretty well, or at least their player bases have a good understanding of what to expect. And I think maybe that's the challenging thing, is that when you're operating a games of service game, any game, there's just this fundamental law that players will always chew through content in orders of magnitude faster than you can create it. And then so the trick is to make content that can be played multiple times, or have a rule set that creates permutations that make the same thing playable multiple times. Like Helldivers is actually really good at this. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah. But unfortunately, at this point, 2 years in, you're only dealing with the hyper-engaged players, the ones that have ground every last drop out of the content they can get. They're desperate for more, and there's just no way that human beings can keep up with that. It seems like no matter what, that this arrangement is destined to end up here, unless I guess some devs have done it perfectly. But even them, they've had their rocky moments. So I don't mean to dismiss all the players' frustrations with Helldivers as just a matter of cycle, but it does feel like we're kind of at that phase now. And they might shake off a lot of players here, unfortunately. Actually, that's one thing I meant to do. I'm wondering if for all the frustration, I'm wondering if player counts have actually dropped at all. It kind of spiked with the last update, but really, it hasn't sunk to a low lower than its other lows. So even though the players are all doom and gloom right now, player counts still averaging around 40K a day, and that's about what they have been. It spiked with the last Warbond, but not nearly as high as the one before that. So yeah, we'll see. If anything, it's going to be a really, really long bleed out, but that situation is even less savory than the one we're in now, where you have a bunch of players that hate the game, and all they do is complain about it all day, but they spend all day playing it and hating it. So hopefully we don't get into that death spiral. Hopefully Helldivers, or hopefully Arrowhead can turn sentiment and perception around and satisfy players and keep everybody happy.
The interesting thing about what you're saying is, because I'm sure that all the people that review bombed every time that some new update came out in Helldivers, they're going to take credit for the swings in gameplay, the swings in Warbonds. They will. So they're saying, well, no, our complaining is what's changing this game. And I don't necessarily know if that is true. It probably is. It seems like Arrowhead is very engaged with their player base, and they love to actually address them on Reddit and on Twitter and lots of other stuff. So the players complaining, even though, like you're saying, the player count is staying pretty the same, the players complaining will take credit for that. They'll say, well, that's because of us. And I don't know if that's actually true or not. Only Arrowhead knows that, but it seems to be that they are actually changing the game with all of the complaining, all the review bombing, and a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, and sentiment matters. I mean, you would even just said that you were thinking about checking it out, but some of the negative cloud around it. Had you try something else, I think there might be a lot of players in that boat, either newer players or returning players. Yeah, if people kick up enough negative dust, then that's gonna keep casual players out, and then I think we will start to see that decline, which would be sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. We'll see. I do love Helldivers, so I hope that it recovers like it always does. Thank you very much for watching Inside Games Daily. We've been doing this for over 5 years now, and we have not yet had a big gamer uprising, which is good. That's a good thing. So thank you very much for watching and not trying to dox us because we said your favorite game was bad. Something like that. Who knows? Mixtape is good. Am I going to get yelled at?
Is that good or bad? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Which one's the good opinion to have?
Some folks really actually do the exact opposite of burning our house down. They support us directly through Patreon. We have a Patreon that they support directly. So thank you very, very much. Sherwin Sanchez, Ryan Dareberry, Bren Fulton, Jay Raluark, and Tyler Jensen. You have been incredibly nice and supporting us for so long. You could troll us just a little bit if you want, just as a treat.